Hello again, everybody. We are back ready to tackle yet another ratio. In our video right now, we're going to be taking a look at inventory ratios. Now, it's all part of a wider series of videos where we have been learning financial statement analysis. So yet another piece of the puzzle right here talking about inventory and hopefully figuring out how quickly our business is able to sell inventory. So we need an example business. I need a business that has a lot of inventory, and I'm thinking Best Buy right now. And I don't know why I'm thinking Best Buy, because that's a place I don't fool with. As a younger guy, I go in there and they've got all the TVs and they've got all the stereos and computers and cell phones and all that stuff, and it's tempting. And you got to resist temptation sometimes. The way I resist temptation, I don't even go in there. I don't fool with Best Buy. Otherwise, I'd probably be coming out with $10,000 worth of TVs and electronic equipment I don't need. But they do have inventory, which is why we're going to use them as our example. If we look at their balance sheet, we can see right there, merchandise inventories. And you can see in 2023, as of January 28th, they had $5.1 billion. It says 5,140, but remember, we're talking in millions right there, so you need to put 6 zeros behind that. The year before, a little bit more inventory, had close to $6 billion in 2022. So thinking out loud about inventory at Best Buy, $5.1 billion in inventory. And our name of the game we're going to be playing here is how long does it take Best Buy to convert that inventory into cash? That's the name of the game if you're a retailer. The longer that inventory sits on the shelf, the worse off you are, because inventory is a non-productive asset. And it's just sitting there, tying up money, taking up space. So we want to put inventory on the shelf, and we want it to fly away as quickly as possible. And so let's see how good Best Buy is at turning over or selling their inventory. And that's really what we're looking at when we talk about inventory analysis. We have an inventory turnover ratio, and we can also measure inventory turnover by the number of days that it takes to sell the average item of inventory. Both of those calculations measure how quickly a business sells its inventory. Two ways of saying the exact same thing with our two calculations we're going to do here. We'll start with that inventory turnover ratio. Measures how many times per year the business turns over or sells its entire inventory balance. We're going to take cost of goods sold and divide it by the average inventory to get that number. So go back to that balance sheet. You can see right there we have our merchandise inventories, but you don't see average, do you? You just see year one and year two. And so we're going to have to do a little bit of math in order to get the average. It's going to be real simple. Don't freak out about the math part. We're also going to need the cost of goods sold figure from the income statement. Sometimes it will be stated as cost of sales. You need to be flexible there and be able to pick out either one. So we need numbers off the balance sheet, merchandise inventories. We need a number off the income statement, cost of goods sold. Calculating that average inventory. Real easy. All we're going to do is take the beginning inventory and the ending inventory, add them together, divide by 2. So wait a second, where's the beginning and ending inventory? Well, you think about it. Our beginning inventory is going to be that first year right there. All right, and that's ending in one year becomes the beginning in the next, right? So we have our beginning inventory and then the ending inventory at the end of year 2 here. We're just going to add those together and divide by 2. We get 5,552.5 average inventory. And you'll see a lot of ratios that want you to take an average. We saw in the accounts receivable video where we're taking our average accounts receivable in order to get the turnover ratio. When we talk about some calculations involving equity, you'll take average stockholders' equity. It's the exact same idea. Take the two numbers, add them together, divide by 2. It couldn't be any easier. Now we got our numbers ready. Let's go ahead and calculate our inventory turnover ratio. We're going to take cost of goods sold divided by average inventory at Best Buy, 36,386 divided by 5,552.5. Best Buy turns their entire inventory balance over on average 6.55 times during the year. Now, if you want to visualize it, you can imagine your local Best Buy store. Everything that's in there right now is going to be cleared out, bought and sold 6.55 times over during the year. And that's an average. You may have items that didn't sell at all. You may have some items that sold quicker. But on average, they're going to sell through their entire inventory balance 6.55 times during the year based on the data that we just calculated. And again, man, I can't really visualize if that's good or bad. It doesn't really help me understand how quickly they are turning over selling the inventory. Well, that's cool. I'm right there with you. We can calculate it as a measure of days as well and see how many days it takes Best Buy to sell the average item of inventory. All we're going to do is take the ratio we just calculated and set it as a denominator under 365. 365 being the number of days in a year. There's my turnover ratio. We just calculated it. Inventory turnover in days, 365 divided by that ratio, and we get 55.7 days. So think about the average item at Best Buy. Maybe you're picturing a simple little calculator. Maybe you're picturing a Blu-ray. Maybe you're picturing a TV. Whatever the case might be, the average item of inventory in 2022, fiscal year 2022, sat there at Best Buy for 55.7 days. Interesting, right? So interpreting that, we have a turnover ratio of 6.55. We have turnover in days of 55.7. As I mentioned, we want to sell through our inventory as quickly as possible. So are those numbers good or bad? Well, we don't know right offhand. We need to know what the trend is. Are inventory sales speeding up? Is that number in days coming down, or is it going up? Are we turning over the inventory more quickly or slower? We need to know the trend. We also need to know what other companies in the industry are experiencing. We look at Amazon, we look at Walmart, we look at Target, we look at other places that have maybe electronics, and we try to compare. Are we selling our inventory as quickly as they are? Now, we got to be careful in comparisons. We just calculated Best Buy. What if we calculated Kroger, the grocery store? Kroger has inventory too, right? If we calculate Kroger, their inventory turnover in days is probably going to be like 15 to 20. Because you think about what Kroger sells. They have perishables. They have groceries. That banana is not going to sit on the shelf at Kroger for nearly as long as the stereo will sit on the shelf at Best Buy. And so when we're doing the comparisons, we want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples, which is a little bit difficult sometimes because you think of like a Walmart. They got a lot of home goods. They've got electronics. They've got clothing, but then they've also got groceries. And so the quick turn on the groceries is kind of offsetting some of the slower turn on the other retail items. So again, it's kind of a little difficult trying to compare one business to another. So let's just compare one business to itself. I did the 2022 calculation for Best Buy. Now you try. Let's do the year before. Here's our balance sheet from the year before. You can see we've got our two different numbers right there for 2022, 2021 fiscal years. Remember, you're calculating the average inventory. And there is our cost of goods sold for the year, fiscal year 2022. So you've got the numbers right there. See if you can calculate the inventory turnover ratio and also the inventory turnover in days. Go ahead and jot your numbers down. Go back and look at your calculation if you need to. And do a little math. See what you come up with. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to do that. Our inventory analysis at Best Buy. We have fiscal year 2022. I gave you the data for FY21. The inventory turnover ratio is 6.93 in the year before. So the turnover was a little bit better in the year before as far as how quickly Best Buy sold their inventory. You can see 52.7 days. So in FY22, it took them 3 days longer on average to sell an item of inventory. And if you wonder where we got those numbers, hopefully you got them correct. If you didn't, check your math here. We take cost of goods sold divided by average inventory for the ratio, and then divide what we get through 65. So that's our inventory turnover ratio, a very, very important ratio if you are a retailer, because the name of the game in retail is to turn inventory as quickly as possible. If you're Southwest Airlines and your business is selling a ticket and moving people from point A to point B, you probably don't have any inventory at all. And if you do, it's probably peanuts and supplies inventory that you're throwing at people, during a flight. And so the inventory turnover ratio is not going to be very important for Southwest Airlines, but for Walmart, for Target, for Bed Bath & Beyond, for Best Buy, for whatever retailer you can think of, a very, very important ratio that you need to know. We are through with our liquidity ratios. We're going to come back next time with a video talking about leverage and looking at how a business uses debt and trying to determine whether or not maybe they have too much debt going on. So some good calculations we'll learn there. In the meantime, if you're working on your homework and you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. The email inbox is open 24/7, and we'll get those questions answered as quickly as we can. Until next time, take care, everybody.